Hello there, my name is Al, and in this video I'm going to be looking at 5 things. These 5 things I believe are totally crucial, or an understanding of them is totally crucial if you wish to study music, and I do truly believe that a lack of understanding of these 5 things is what contributes so much to the confusion people have when they study music. Okay, so what are these 5 things? Well, the first thing we're going to look at is we have 12 notes, okay, but we only have 7 names for them, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What happened to H, I, J, K and L? Okay, good question. The second thing we need to look at is what a scale actually is. The third thing we need to look at is what creates the sound of that scale. Fourthly, we're going to be looking at why we use sharps and flats, and we'll also touch on the fifth thing, which is why we don't use H, I, J, K and L. Okay, so to do this we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of the universe. Ooh, the beginning of time. Now, humans have borrowed a sound from nature for millennia, and in the Western music system we call this sound the octave. But this octave sound is actually ever present in the universe. It flies around all over the place. Okay, and we kind of borrowed it. Now if we play the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, you're playing the note that we call A. If you go to the 14th fret on the 3rd string, you're playing A. This is what we call an octave in the Western music system. Okay, that's the sound of nature. It's a good idea if you actually just see that as a gap, because that's what it is. There's a gap. And gaps can be divided. Now, this took a couple of thousand years. It started off with Pythagoras, a mathematician, and all his crew back in ancient Greece. Goes all the way through. Bach was quite important. And we're not going to deal with the maths in this video. We're just going to look at what the maths has left you with, which is 12 equal divisions of that octave, and that's why we have 12 notes. They divided it into 12. So if we start on the A, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we play A again on the 14th fret. So we've ended up with 12 divisions, and those 12 divisions are our 12 notes. Okay, so why don't we use all 12 in a scale, or when we play music? Well, sometimes we do, because today we call that the chromatic scale. But I'll play you some music using all 12 notes, and I don't think you'll find it too satisfying, but you may do, who knows. So here we go. Okay, now it's not horrendous, but I wouldn't want to listen to that all day on the radio, and I suspect you wouldn't be putting it on Spotify all day either. So, you know, they came up with an idea. They actually use maths for this. We're going to use our ears. Okay, so what happens when we play the first note and then we miss one out? So we don't play that note. Oh, creates a different sound. Then they didn't miss one out. Then they missed one out. Then they missed one out. Then they didn't miss one out. Then they missed one out. And then they missed one out. So they missed 5 notes out. That had a major effect on the sound of the notes when you played them. And if I play music in that, it will sound probably more pleasing to the ear. Okay, so essentially what happened was they ended up with 7 notes and they threw the other 5 away. Now if you've got 7, we need to name them something. And given that Pythagoras and all that were mathematicians, they will have understood that languages are not just written and verbal, and they probably understood they were creating a language here. So A, B, C, why not, is as good as anything else. So as they had 7 and they got rid of 5, they named them A, B, C, D, E, F, essentially as well, that is what your scale is. A scale, or what we call a scale today, it used to be called a mode, but we now call them scales. A scale is playing all the letters, all the notes that we use when you start on one note, between that note and the same note an octave higher. So if we have an A and an A, then playing the scale is playing all the notes between them. And going down the scale. So that's all a scale is, it's the notes in between the octave. Okay, so now that's interesting, we've got a sound there. Now the other interesting thing that happens next is what happens when we start on a different note. Now if we start on C, which is the first fret of the second string, and we play all the natural notes up to C on the 13th fret, which is an octave higher, it gets quite interesting. Here we go, we have C, then we play D, then we play E, then we play F, then we play G, then we play A, then we play B, and then we play C. We played the same notes, but it doesn't sound the same. When we started on A, it sounded like this. When we start on C, it sounds like this. It's a different sound. Why? Okay, well that brings us to what creates the sound of a scale. If we analyse this, because they left notes out, they created a bigger gap. They call this gap a tone when they leave a note out. That's what you will hear referred to as a tone. When they didn't leave one out, they call it a semitone today. And scales are now comprised of combinations of tones and semitones. When you start on A, you go tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. Okay, so here we go. Right, so that went tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. When we start on C, we actually play a different order. Tone first, then a tone, not a semitone. A semitone now, a tone, a tone, a tone. So we have three tones on the trot, semitone. So on A, it went tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. When we started on C, it went tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And it's the reordering of those gaps of tones and semitones, big gaps, little gaps, twos and ones, whatever you want to see them as, that actually creates the sound of the scale. Now there are 7 notes, which means you could start on 7 different notes and go up to the octave of each one, and therefore there are 7 different combinations. Pythagoras named these the modes. Okay. Now basically what happened a few thousand years ago was that a couple of those were taken and changed into a new system, and their names were changed into scales. So Pythagoras named this one that started on C Ionian mode. Today you know that as C major. It is actually the same thing. But what happened around about Bach's time was that they wanted to play this scale, the C major. It became the important scale. In fact, it's been the most important scale for several hundred years. But they wanted to play it on all 12 notes of the octave. Okay, so you can do that if you think about the pattern. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay, so we'll start on G. Now, if we play a G, if you move to the next note A, you've got a tone, which we need. It needs to go tone, tone, semitone to start with. B's a tone. That's great. We're doing fine. C's a semitone. Okay, we've got our tone, tone, semitone. C to D is a tone. D to E is a tone. That's 2 of the tones we need. But we need to do a tone now. But E to F is a semitone. We need a tone. Well, hang on. We could create a tone by moving to there. So instead of playing that note, we can go there. We've got a tone. We've just used one of the notes we didn't have a name for. Okay. So we can create that pattern, but we end up with one of those notes that we haven't named. So we end up with tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 using this note, semitone. What are we going to call this note? Okay, well, they could have called it H, I, J, K, and L, and if they had done that, would have been K. Now if you think about your scale, saying it would have been G, A, B, C, D, E, K, G. That doesn't make a lot of sense and it makes it more confusing. That's an E, that's a G and that's a K. That does not make sense. But they wanted to use it. So if you think about it, if you've got F there and you're just moving it up one, why don't we call that F sharp? Now, it has several advantages. The main advantage is that you now have 7 letter names in order from G to G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. It makes more sense than calling that K. So they ended up using sharps. Okay. Now we've ended up using flats as well. So why do we use flats in some scales and sharps in others? Well, this is all down to those 7 letter names. It's much easier to understand and read and play a scale and think about a scale if it's got 7 ordered letter names from one to the next, to the same letter name higher. And that's what all these scales have. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now, we'll just start on F. So if we started on F, we need to go tone, tone, semitone. That's those notes. We're playing this note now, which is another note that was not used. Okay, so what we're going to call it? Well, in this scale, we're playing F. We move a tone to G. We move a tone to A. So because we've already played an A, we call this one B flat because we want the note to be after A. And then we go C, D, E, F. So to go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone on F and keep the order of 7 different notes, you call it B flat in this situation. It is the same as A sharp, but we've already had an A, so we don't call it A sharp. We want 7 different letters. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And if you create that pattern of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone on every note of the scale, or the octave, sorry, you will create 12 different major scales. That's your key system, but you'll be using different sharps and flats, and that's what the sharps and flats are for. Okay, now these 5 things, or this kind of sort of knowledge, I think is crucial before you start studying music. If you watch my videos that follow this one, you'll be learning how to work out the sharps and flats and keys and loads more stuff. But I would like you to get a good understanding of all of this before you start looking at those videos. Okay, I hope this has given you some knowledge. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.